apparently I'm now a civil service interview expert. Just over a year ago, I picked up the camera for the first time and started talking about the civil service interview process. Looking back, those videos weren't great, but I'm still proud of myself for putting myself out there. However, I do look back and cringe at the quality of those videos. I didn't smile at the camera, and I think my presentation style is lacking, to say the least, and don't even get me started on the camera quality, lighting, etc. My initial reason for making these videos was just because when I joined the civil service, I couldn't find any resources that I wanted to watch. I found them all quite boring, quite vanilla, quite corporate-y. So I just thought that I could be someone who could shed some light on the process from an applicant's perspective. I remember the day that I published my first video, and I was extremely nervous because I knew that I had to post it on Facebook or LinkedIn. Well, I didn't have to, you know, but it wouldn't have got any views if I hadn't put it on those platforms. And I just remember thinking that my colleagues in work, some of them would see this, and my friends and family would see it. I was very nervous, but I did it anyway, and I'm very glad that I did, because I think it's important sometimes to push through that discomfort when you know that it's going to benefit you in the long run. And I'll be very honest, I didn't think much of it just because I thought not many people would watch these videos. I didn't think that there was a market for this. I just thought that it was going to be one or two people who had the same sort of questions that I did. I was very wrong on this one. It turns out there were thousands and thousands of people, all with the same questions that I had. The initial video that I posted started to get views and traction pretty much instantly, and the last time I checked, that video now has over 40,000 views, which is really insane for a video which is just me talking about my experience of an interview process. Like 40,000 views is a hell of a lot of views, and it's just something that I didn't expect at all. When I started posting these videos, I was now getting all sorts of questions from people. I was getting requests to talk about this behavior, talk about that behavior. Throughout this time, I was learning about how to edit YouTube videos, improving my public speaking with speaking to the camera, and I just had huge amounts of imposter syndrome. You'll notice in my videos that I've always tried to make it clear to people that these are my views and are not to be considered official guidance. It's funny, I think that that term is like ingrained into me now. I've written it and said it so many times, but it's true. Like, I just didn't want people to think that I was this expert, because I don't consider myself an expert at all. I was also incredibly nervous that someone was going to contact me and say, you have to take these down, you're not an official trainer. So I used it as a way to, I guess, pose as not an expert and just someone who was sharing their opinion. I even found myself last summer speaking on a panel to an audience of around 1,000 people, sharing my experiences of the process, how I'd helped thousands of people by that point, and it just all felt very strange. Like, I didn't feel like I belonged on the panel. I didn't feel like I was an expert. Imposter syndrome isn't something that I guess is really new to me. I guess I've experienced it quite a lot over the years. The majority of my career so far, even though it's only been short 4 or 5 years, I've often been the youngest person in the room, and that also comes with the feeling of, why should I give my opinion? Why should I talk? Because there's other people in the room who've been doing this for 20 years, therefore I should just, you know, be quiet and listen. What I am proud of, though, is that even though when I feel like that in certain situations, I still give my opinion anyway. Like, I still do the thing anyway, and that is one bit of advice I have for people, is even though you do feel like an imposter sometimes, just do it anyway. I've spoken to a lot of people recently in work, outside of work, and I feel like this feeling of feeling like an imposter and imposter syndrome is something that the majority of people will struggle with at some point. However, the other thing I've realized is that the only person who is thinking that you're an imposter is actually you. I don't think anyone else is sat there thinking, oh, Jack's a fraud, like, why is he on that panel? He doesn't know anything. The majority of people I've come across are just very, very grateful that I'm sharing advice with them. I've realized over the last year with this YouTube channel that there is a huge amount of value in just sharing your perspective on things and not pretending to know all of the answers. That's generally now what my YouTube channel is about. I just like sharing things with people that I feel like would have helped me a few years ago. I often think to myself, what would have helped Jack 2 or 3 years ago, and just share those in videos. Another thing that this imposter syndrome and this whole YouTube thing has taught me is that there's a lot of value in learning people who are not experts. I feel like generally we learn best from people who are 2 or 3 steps ahead of us in the process, just because they understand the pitfalls and the things that we're struggling with way more than someone who's an expert and is 10, 15, 20 years in the game, because they've almost forgotten what it feels like to be at that beginner level. And the thing that I've held on to with regards to imposter syndrome is something that Stephen Bartlett talked about in his podcast. I can't remember which interview it was, but he said something along the lines of, if he's ever in a situation where he doesn't feel like the imposter in the room, then maybe he's not pushing himself out of his comfort zone enough. That's where you really grow and develop and push your comfort zone. So I now try and take it as a good sign. When I feel like an imposter for sitting on a panel at a conference, that's probably a good sign that I'm leveling up and growing as a person. Despite feeling like an imposter for parts of the last year or so, I have really enjoyed hearing from everyone regarding people getting jobs. I've loved hearing from people. I get so many messages on LinkedIn, so many comments on YouTube, all from people saying things like, oh Jack, this video helped me get a job, I'm super grateful. I've had multiple in-person conversations. Well, I say in-person over, Teams or Skype or whatever. I've had multiple conversations with people where we talk about the interview process and they just tell me how grateful they are. And I have to say that I absolutely love that feeling of having an impact on people. I think having an impact and being able to help people is one of my core values. On the flip side of that, I also still get a lot of comments, questions, DMs from people, all asking for very specific parts of the interview process. Maybe there's a behavior that I haven't talked about, or maybe there's something really specific that just wouldn't make sense to put in a YouTube video just because it's so detailed. And I'm a little bit reluctant to make more videos about it now because I want my channel to be more focused on me, my personality, and the stuff that I'm doing. I did feel like I had a lot more value to give on the civil service interviewing process, and I didn't want my channel to have any more videos about this. I wanted to be able to present everything that I possibly knew from my experience and have one resource that I could just point people to, and that would answer hopefully all of the questions that they had. Throughout the last year, I've had a lot of conversations with people, and I've definitely identified people's sticking points. A lot of people seem to struggle with the cover letters and the various types of applications, and I've also noticed that people wanted to talk about some of the other behaviors, aka managing a quality service. I still get comments about that every single day. I've taken on board all of this feedback and I started to put together everything that I knew about the process. I started to write it down. I started to look at what I've had conversations about in the past, and I'm very happy to say that I think that I've come up with something that is really going to help a lot of people who want more detail about the process. So I'm very proud to be introducing to you my brand new Skillshare class, all about civil service interviewing from an applicant's experience. For those of you who've never used Skillshare, it is an online learning platform similar to Netflix in the sense that you pay a monthly subscription and then you can watch a bunch of classes about anything that you're interested in. I've personally used Skillshare to learn how to edit my YouTube videos. I've used it for data science. I've also used it for web design. I think it's a great platform and I really enjoy it. I also really like how Skillshare is accessible for people, and if you sign up using my link down below, you will get 1 month free of Skillshare where you can go through and watch all of the lessons in my class. There's 36 lessons in my class, which comes out to around 1.5 hours of material, and I tried to answer everything that I could possibly think about. I go through each of the behaviors in detail, including managing a quality service for those who've already asked. I also go through all of the different types of application stage questions as well as the interview questions. There's also a bunch of resources in there full of practice mock interview questions. I threw the book at it, guys. I gave absolutely everything. If you do head over to my class down below, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of it. I would love your feedback on anything that I could do to improve. Just to conclude on imposter syndrome, I want to encourage people that it's probably a good thing. Now, I'm not encouraging you to feel like an imposter all of the time because that might lead to all sorts of anxiety and that wouldn't be a good thing, but it's probably good sometimes to just feel like a bit of a fraud, a bit of an imposter, because it probably means that you're developing and you're leveling up in your yourself. I think the common misconception that a lot of people have about successful people or senior people or people who are in really high positions is that, oh, they must never feel like an imposter. And I think that's wrong. From my experience, a lot of the time, these people do feel like an imposter. They do feel like, oh, I don't belong. But the difference between them and other people is that they do the thing anyway. Try and be that person. Be that person who, even though you feel imposter syndrome, even though you're feeling a bit like, oh, just do it anyway. And I just want to encourage people that I'm no different to you. I feel like an imposter sometimes, but I'm trying to do the thing anyway. So once again, if you do want more detail about civil service interviewing outside of my YouTube videos, go and check out my class down below. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a great day, take care, and I'll see you soon.